Hello and welcome to this, the 151st edition of Old Romans Unscripted. Now, I am going to be joined this week by Father Thomas Gerke, with any luck. He was here a moment ago, but I think he's having Wi-Fi issues. And waiting in the green room now is Bishop Kelly. So let's welcome and bring on him. Hello, Bishop Kelly.
Hello there. How is everyone?
Very well, thank you. A little bit quiet again.
Sorry.
Let me see if I can adjust that for you. 1 second. Keep talking. Oh.
Yeah, is that better?
Yeah, that's better.
I'm using my phone this time, not the iPad. So.
Super. Lovely. Yes, greetings to Bishop Kelly. Greetings to our viewers who are all chiming in now. So greetings to Anne in Ireland. God bless you. To Barbara in Zakynthos this week in Greece. Not just over the valley as usual, but in Greece. Welcome to you. Hello, Peggy in East Tennessee. Welcome to you. There's Walt in Germany. Hello and welcome to you. And Father Gerke will be with us, hopefully. He was, as I said, just a few moments ago. So please, as usual, do chime in, say hi, don't be shy. And please do share your comments, or do share your observations and questions in the comments. How's your week been, Bishop Kelly?
It's been cold.
I understand snow is starting to fall.
There was snow. And it was minus 12 degrees Celsius last night.
Wow.
So it was hot water bottle and extra blankets territory. And I lit the wood burner. So yeah, I'm still cold.
Yeah, you can a bit of a sniffle.
In fact, I'm looking out the window now and it's snowing. So
gosh, right. Well, as usual, plenty has gone on this week, news-wise. So we're going to discuss a few of the headlines. Meanwhile, there's a few more greetings. Greetings from Portugal. Wonderful. Welcome. Greetings there from Kelly in Desert Hills, Arizona. Welcome to you.
Bet it's not snowing there.
No. No. Okay, so so we've had a few interesting headlines this week, and one of which drew my particular attention. So I am going to post in the banners for you where these headlines are coming from. Here we go. And what I might do as well, I can't do that. Okay. Okay, so so the Mexican government are trying to outlaw religious symbols in public spaces, and as a result, a group of the faithful in Mexico have decided to put on a competition to see who will have the best nativity scene or crib scene in public. Now, this is, of course, we've seen this kind of trend before. A few years ago in France, there was an attempt by the government there to ban crucifixes from school classrooms. Likewise, I think it was in Sweden or Denmark, there was a similar move there to ban religious symbols from schools and public institutions. And in fact, if I remember rightly, there was even a Lutheran woman bishop who insisted that the churches in her diocese took down Christian symbols in order to better facilitate an interfaith welcome to Muslims and others. Likewise, here in the UK, a couple of years ago, there was an attempt then by a Church of England bishop with a parish that was hosting Muslims for Friday prayers, and they were instructed to take down any crosses or overtly Christian symbols down from the space. And so this is just another sort of a long line of attempts by secularist governments to impose restrictions on what is and has been enshrined by the United Nations a human right to manifest one's religion and to express it in the public space. Bishop Kelly, are there? I think, well, I'm right in thinking there have been similar attempts in places in America. I think was there an attempt in New York or?
Well, there are attempts, but it's enshrined in the Constitution of freedom of religion, so they really can't do that. I mean, individual churches can do what they want, but you cannot ban Christianity or Islam or Judaism or anything like that, because of the freedom of religion that's enshrined in the Constitution. So, yeah, it would be impossible for the government to make any sort of blanket ban. But the curious thing about Mexico, if I heard you right, sorry, I was distracted for a minute. Did you say the government is trying to ban the erection of cribs, creches?
Well, no, the Mexican government wants to ban any religious symbols in public spaces. But the faithful there, a group of the faithful have got together to put a competition as to who can have the best crib seen in a public space.
Good for them. Well, it's going to be hard, but it's going to be hard to ban churches, basilicas, and and shrines in Mexico. But you know, it's nothing new. In the 1920s, the government in Mexico banned Catholicism and closed all churches, which gave rise to the Cristeros movement. And if you haven't seen it, I would encourage people to have a look at. I think the name of the movie is for Greater Glory, and tells of the story of the Cristeros movement who fought against the communist government at the time to restore Catholicism. Andy Garcia is in it. I think it might be Selma Hayek as well. She's in it. I mean, it's not a low budget movie. It's quite a heavy hitter, and it tells of the rebellion against the communist government of the time, which was supported by the United States, but supported by the Knights of Columbus here in the United States, who sponsored and gave money and help to the Cristeros movement. But it's a good movie if you can catch it. It was made maybe 10 years ago or something like that. But it'll give you an insight as to the struggle, what you would think was a Catholic country. I mean, the theory about Catholicism in Mexico is that the conversion of the indigenous people in Mexico, which happened en masse, and you have the apparition, or the not the apparition, but it was an apparition, as well as the imprinting on the tilde of Our Lady of Guadalupe, which is another fascinating story. It's reported that if you look at the tilde, you can see in her eyes reflected hundreds of people that she was looking at. But it surpassed the amount of people in Europe that were lost at the Reformation, which was happening at the same time. And of course, it brought to an end pagan sacrifice and replaced it with the sacrifice of Christ. And to this day, Mexicans have huge devotion to Our Lady of Guadalupe, as to she is the mother of the Americas, and there's been repeated attempts. Of course, the current president is an outright communist as well, but I think it will be very hard for them to do in this day and age. Although we are trending in that direction, and they managed to do it in the 1920s, but not for long.
It's no wonder that people are trying to cross the border, is it?
Yeah.
Now, Father Gerke's in the green room, so let's bring him in now, and hopefully this will work. Viva Cristo Rey! Welcome, Father Thomas.
Good job.
How are you?
I had a Bishop Kelly moment right as we were beginning.
You're very soft.
Yeah, I can't hear a word.
Let me see if I can.
This is probably not going to... Hold on.
Hold on. Don't do anything yet.
That's a
Don't
bit
do
better.
anything yet. Try talking now.
Is that any better?
Yeah, much better.
Yeah. So I'm on my mom's laptop right now because
So I see.
the internet went out.
Hi, Mary.
She's right there.
Hello, Mary.
Last minute scramble for internet connection and everything to work. So I don't know.
Bring her into the camera. Let's see her.
Hey, come on. Here. Come on. Move closer. There.
Don't be shy. There we are.
Hello.
If our viewers won't mind, we'll just briefly interrupt the discussion there. So you both went to see a high school musical production of Sister Act last evening. Yeah, and how was it?
It was wonderful. Escanaba Performing Arts program is top notch. And I'm not saying that being biased as being an alumni of that program, but truly that is one of the landmark theater groups in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, if not even in the Midwest. For you just think of being a public school system and the budgets and the financing and all that stuff to put on a production year in and year out for over 58 years now. They've been doing this. And most of us, you only get 4 years in it. So to be part of that legacy and to go and enjoy the theater. And then I was called upon to draw the 50-50 ticket, being an alumni. So I got to go up on stage and I was in my habit. So, it wasn't a costume, of course, but I blended in with the cast.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Yeah, big Sister Act. Yeah.
And, it was a wonderful evening. And it's all the more important. And I reminded the audience in supporting this to continue to support the theater, to continue to support the high school in this, because as you guys were just talking about, times are only going to get crazier, and it's having these mediums to go to, having these events that can help keep you focused, keep you centered. It's a great attribute to the staff, the directors, the crew, the benefactors, all that put in countless hours, days, months, and all this. So supporting the theater, and I mean, the show was phenomenal. I mean, obviously it was nothing like the movies. So for those viewers who may know the Sister Act movies, the general theme was the same, but the location was different. There was no songs from any of the movies in there. So it was all original music. It was definitely a unique twist to Sister Act as we have known it.
Mary, what did you think?
I thought all the performers did an excellent job. It was very, very good. We have a very talented community of children.
Excellent. Well, I've
Is that because you couldn't book Dame Maggie Smith?
Well,
Because we couldn't put.
You can forget Whipping, but Maggie Smith will be a draw.
and I am one of the supporters of, it's called the Bright Spots. That's what Spotlight is what it's called, that you can contribute to support the arts at the high school.
Smashing. Well, I went to a production meeting last night of the local village panto, which I direct the music for each year. So that was good. So that was the tech guys and the the stage production crew and all the rest of it, and going through the script and discussing the cues and all that kind of thing. And we've got some great tunes this year. Naturally, we're pinching them, but so we've got what was it? We're opening with "Good Morning Vegetable." That's the name of the place where the pantomime is set. It's Jack and the Beanstalk we're doing this year, but of course we'll be singing that to "Good Morning Baltimore" from Hairspray, and we've got "Come Follow the Band" from Barnum and various other good songs, good tunes there as well. But we won't be performing.
I think you need to explain to Americans what pantomime is.
Oh, I don't know. Actually, I found most seem to know what it is these days. But for the benefit quickly of those of you who don't, pantomime ultimately derives from the mummers and mystery plays of the medieval period, where during the Christmas season, especially, but other times of other festivals in the year as well, players would produce either stories reenacting the lives of the saints, or moral stories, or even political satire. And over the centuries, of course, things change. And long after the medieval period had gone away, and we'd gone through the Reformation and the Puritans and everything else, and then in the 19th century, plays began to pop up again, and one of the most favourite forms, aside from the music hall, which was a bit raucous and a bit burlesque, developed the pantomime at Christmas, where old children's stories and fables and tales would be reenacted, but with a mixture of the influence of commedia dell'arte and the old mummers play traditions as well. So in that, for example, the dame, who is always the mother of the heroine, is played by a man, and the principal boy, so normally the hero character, is played by a girl. So this is long before long before today's heady heights of gender fluidity and confusion. It of course
was comical, not reality.
It was done, of course, as a nod, in fact, to the back to the Shakespearean medieval Tudor days, when women did not perform on the stage, and so men had to play women's roles. So it's a nod to that history and tradition as well. And today, pantomimes are good fun. They're mainly orientated toward children, so there's a lot of slapstick humor. Every panto has a ghost scene, has a scene where people get wet with buckets of water or or foam as custard pies in their faces and things like that, which the kids absolutely die for. But then there is a kind of, in typical sort of English wit, the script is full of sort of double entendre. So there's a level, as it were, for the adults to enjoy that just goes over the heads of the kids. I have to say that having done 14 years of this particular pantomime production, I hate matinees. Because the kids are just so loud. They scream and boo when the baddie comes on. They go crazy for the heroine, etc. And you just can't hear yourself think because it's from the kids. But also, we tend to get a quieter crowd of adults at matinees who obviously have come to accompany the kids and aren't quite sure if they can laugh or not at the innuendo and double entendre from the script. So matinees are a bit of a damp squid in one respect, but the evening performances are always great fun. You tend to get the older kids come along to that. But there's there's a sing along, and there's slapstick, there's comedy, there's tragedy, there's romance, and all the rest of it. So yeah, that's what pantomime is.
Do they still have the horse and the it's behind you sort of?
Oh, we've got a cow this year. Daisy the cow. So that'll be two people. It's actually two women this year who are dressed in a cow suit. So one of them is the front half, and they have the front leg. They're the front legs of the cow, and they have the cow head on, and then the other poor woman has got to lean over. She's the back legs and the body of the cow.
She must have a back of steel to play that.
Sorry?
She must have a back of steel to do that.
Absolutely, and she's got to hold the waist of the other one, and then they're draped in a costume that covers them all. But Daisy hasn't got any words. She just says moo. But when we were going through
what else would you say?
When we were going through the script last night, we were ticking off the sound effects cues and the music cues, and this particular cue came up, and I said to the sound guys, I said, as much as I know my bass player would love to have a go at making this noise, I think this is an SFX cue, not a music cue. And it was for Daisy's fart. The cow fart. Let's hope she doesn't follow through. So
I would like to be the one in the back.
No, quite. If you've ever seen Amadeus, the film about Mozart, you may recall a music hall scene in Vienna where they had a pantomime horse, and they fed. I think they put hay and something else and the rest of it into the front end, and then out the back end came a string of sausages. So there are all sorts of fun you can have with panto animals.
That is the worst joke I've heard.
Well, one more thing really quick about the show last night. It was really kind of interesting because the last scene in the movie they're playing for His Holiness, and the time setting for this musical was in the 70s, so they actually had Paul VI instead of what the movies know to be JP2. And so they had a character come on stage, Papal Whites. It was actually one of their foreign exchange students. And he was just full on, white and garb and everything. He's sitting there next to the priest. And of course, I'm laughing at more jokes than the rest of the crowd because all the just like the clergy jokes and the Vatican II jokes but I will say this, they actually did proper Latin. So when their nuns were singing and chanting and going through everything, they did that on point. Like it was a phenomenal Latin. And they had good vocals with it, good notes. So I was like, they're actually rocking out the Gloria. I'm like, that's kind of impressive. It's actually better sounding the way they're doing it than what most novice ordo churches around here probably would put on. Yeah. So I was like, up to that.
Let's hope he doesn't show up next year and the nuns won't be wearing any habits.
Well, there probably won't be any nuns next year, the way this current pontificates go. But I digress.
Yeah. Okay, let's get back on track.
Back to Mexico.
So, we've done Mexico. Let's move on. So the next item is again, for the benefit of viewers, the German bishops have been at the Vatican this past week on an ad limina visit. An ad limina is a 5-yearly visit by bishops of local area to the Vatican, ostensibly to give a report on their diocese to the Holy Father, and usually is an opportunity to meet various officials from the dicasteries and the curia, and spend time with each other in conference as well. Well, of course, because of all that's been going on in Germany, read the Synodal Weg, and all the various things that we've talked about on numerous shows. There was some quite intense, by the sounds of it, conversations at the Vatican during this ad limina by the German bishops. And seemingly coming from that has been the suggestion of a moratorium on the reforms that the Synodal Way has been suggesting to the church, for the church in Germany. Now, you know, we know
that I think they got away with it,
as it were. So intriguing, really, to know, to speculate what the moratorium might itself apply to. Now, one of the things that came up during the ad limina, not in Rome, but in Germany, in Trier, was there is a sede vacante, a see that is vacant, and the Synodal Weg had required that lay people have more involvement in the selection process of bishops. But it would seem that according to concordats signed by the Holy See with the government of Germany after the war, one or two dioceses can't involve the laity more because of the agreed ways in which those dioceses have been set up to appoint their bishops. So that caused quite a few roar at home. So it looks like not only are the German bishops getting it in the neck from Rome, but they're also getting it in the neck from the laity at home as well.
Yeah, you know, it's this is not an original thought of mine, because I've heard a commentator mention this, but that Rome is putting the brakes on Germany because they think they're going too fast too soon. They're sort of saying, we'll get there in the end, but you know, you're creating too many waves here. And they want to calm it down. You know, they want this to be the outcome of the synod about synods about synods. But you know that they're on a sort of accelerated path, and the thinking is that being so vocal and being so quick to come to these conclusions will actually put the brakes on the synod, because you'll get more conservative conferences of bishops that will have a knee-jerk reaction to that. So I've no reason to believe that. I mean, that seems feasible to me. I don't know if it's true or not, but it does seem feasible that they want to just say, let's take it slowly. And as we all know, Rome moves slower than molasses or treacle. So, you know, that could be a way of, you know, slapping it down for a bit. But they really are off the charts. I mean, it's quite unbelievable. I think I said last week, you know, that when Benedict visited Germany, the amount of bishops that refused to shake his hand was just extraordinary. And it was an awfully awkward thing to watch. So they really do have a reaction against traditional, not even traditional, even just mainstream modern Catholicism is what they're reacting against, never mind traditional stuff. I mean, you have the odd exemption, including Ratzinger and Cardinal Mueller and Schneider, who, of course, is of German extraction. Yeah, well, I would hope to think it's the right reason for them to be sort of smacked down a little, put the moratorium on it. But I don't know. There could be something nefarious behind it as well.
I'm going to
We'll
pick
see.
up on the latter with what you're saying, Bishop Kelly, because I think there is something more malice or nefarious behind it, because they're extending the synod now for another year. And so I think this beginning was testing the waters. How are people going to react? What's the general consensus? We're going to throw out a lot of this crazy, and now we're going to come up with a game plan to make sure that people can swallow the crazy pill we're going to put in front of them. Or we're just going to shut them up and call them, excommunicate them and call them heretics and kick them out of the church if they don't agree with us.
It's quite possible. I mean, anything's possible these days. Who on earth knows? I mean, it's just Looney Tunes stuff. But
At least Looney Tunes was funnier.
that's true. So time will tell.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see.
That'll be the phone.
Yeah, phone. Hold on. Back in the landline days. That's how far north I am, and still in current time where we're going back to landline.
I still have a landline.
Well, most people don't nowadays. Most people, it's their cell phones and all that. So, it always throws me off when I hear the phone ringing up here. I'm like, "There's a landline." Oh yeah, that's right. But anyways, back to the topics.
Yes. So, moving on. So the next topic is the FBI investigating pro-life organizations and individuals. Now, you're both in the States. Can you see, either of you shed any more light on that?
I think it's all talk.
They're investigating pro-life individuals?
No, they're investigating the crimes and burglaries.
Attacks against them. That's what I thought.
Attacks against the churches and the pro-life centers. And I think it's talk.
They have to be seen to do something. I mean, the buzz in the news is that the FBI are completely corrupt, and the new Republican Congress is going to investigate them for political bias, which is left-leaning. So this could be put out there as a sort of false flag sort of thing to say, "Oh no, we're not. Look what we're doing here."
I was just agreeing with you on that. I think this is just the majority trying to pander to the House so they don't get slapped too hard.
Yeah, I would agree there.
Yeah,
that's what it seems. Why didn't they say this a year ago? Right after the Supreme Court, or not quite a year, but right after the Supreme Court overturned Roe versus Wade, when they were graffitiing churches and burning pro-life adoption clinics, organizations. So it didn't come out then, but suddenly when Congress flips, then they come out. So
it's like, why didn't they investigate the peaceful protesting that was taking place in the early 2020? And even with the whole Epiphany stunt that was done in our nation's capital, they investigate. It's just lip service. They investigate. Oh, it's like when your boss says, "Oh, I'll look into it." That's the polite way of saying just get out.
Yeah.
That's all this is. And the more Americans.
But having said that, I'm reluctant to talk too much about it because a guy with a black tie and a black suit may show up at the front door.
If they can find me, I welcome them. I mean, seriously, it's like, you know what? The truth will set you free. And, for anybody who has eyes to see and ears to hear, we need to be that voice of reason. We need to be that truth. And we can't compromise and say, be afraid that, the big government boogeyman's going to come knocking on our door and say, you've been, I mean, seriously, it's like, come on, guys, really? I think on the pecking order, if we're even on that pecking order, we're very, very like one of the last people that would be coming after.
Yeah, I mean, the truth is, of course, is that if it were the other way around, if it were Planned Parenthood clinics that were being attacked, damaged, graffitied, and vandalized, and other abortion centres, the FBI would be all over it, wouldn't they?
Of course they would.
Because the Democrats would be insisting on it.
No, 100%. And I think in Chicago, you can correct me if I got this wrong, Bishop Kelly, but I think there was one Planned Parenthood that was accidentally attacked during the peaceful protests in Chicago. I think I remember the peaceful protesting that took place.
Is that the peaceful protests?
Yes. The peaceful to the canonization process of Saint Floyd or whatever.
Right.
I think that one of their clinics accidentally got attacked. It was just, friendly fire, if you will, or just an incident occurred and a car went or hit something or hit the front facade or whatever. And they were raising hoopla about that, thinking that it might have been infiltration of a mega person. Then it comes, they did a full investigation. No, I could be wrong on all the details, but I think I remember when all that was going.
I didn't hear that, but the left attacking a Planned Parenthood clinic is like saying Black lives don't matter, given their history.
It would be, Black lives do matter because they're trying to stop the killing of Black lives that take place in those.
Yeah, I mean that's what they were purpose for, wasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
That was Margaret Sanger's plan, her strategy. And now, any comments from either of you about the stepping down of Nancy Pelosi?
The stumbling down, you mean? She had to go pick down. She had to go bend down and pick up another bottle and open it up, and they just booted her out.
Well, she had no option. She lost the house, so but she didn't want to run for. I think people talk about term limits, but people should talk about age limits.
Competency
you had
limits.
You had Biden mixing up Colombia with Cambodia. They're not even on the same continent.
In fairness, I could probably do that.
But
well, I mean, if the number of short videos I've seen on YouTube of average Americans being interviewed and asked, what country did the Queen of England originally come from? And they can't answer it.
France.
Yeah, I know. I was speaking to somebody yesterday. He said, "Are you from England or from Ireland?" I said, "I'm from Ireland." And he's like, "What do you call that island that's in between? Is that Tasmania?" No, that's next to Australia. That's called the Isle of Man.
Wow. Yeah, we're not too keen on history or geography in the United States of America.
I mean, age. I mean, there's something to be said about age. I mean, when you think that, how old is Biden?
80 something.
I mean, Pelosi is 81.
She is.
Yeah,
81. Biden is 80 something, isn't he?
Yeah, he's got to be either early 80s or mid 80s.
Maybe someone in the comments can let us know. Bergoglio is 86.
How old's Benedict? 92?
96.
No, 96.
96 now.
Yeah,
All
it's
right.
still going. Just.
He
Although I've
doesn't look-
noticed,
he
I
doesn't
don't know if you've noticed, but on my the algorithms on my YouTube keep throwing up programs about Benedict the 16th, almost as if in the past tense. So there was.
Oh, I had one this morning. I was looking up. I watched this thing called Kilts and Culture. It's about Celtic culture, and right beneath it was the last days of Benedict.
Yeah.
Was right underneath it.
Yeah.
I didn't ask you for that.
Oh, Biden is
but yeah.
80 tomorrow. Biden is 80 tomorrow.
Oh. I hope somebody reminds him.
It's a bit crazy, isn't it? When it's a bit crazy when the general societal consensus is that when people hit 60, 65, they should go into retirement. That these people, are continue to put themselves up for and elected to positions of power that really require. I mean, I'm all for. I mean, I do think that one of the greatest ills of contemporary society is the lack of utilization of the wisdom and lived experience that comes with age and seniority. That to my mind is a travesty. And when you think that in days past it was normal for grandparents to be involved with the upbringing of grandchildren, etc.
But
And the
even
passing on
in tribal
knowledge.
society, the elders were respected.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
But
And they were.
there does come a time, when people reach an age at which they are not, shall we say, at the best of their abilities and powers. And is it right? We should expect, some people to take on the burden of high office.
Yeah, I think people deserve to enjoy their retirement. It doesn't mean they have to be put in an old person's home, but just to enjoy, go out on the golf course, relax, go out for dinner in the evening.
I mean, when you think
you've
of
earned it.
when
You've
you think
earned it over the years.
When you think of the kind of schedule that the President of the United States has, you think of the kind of schedule that the Holy Father has. These guys. I mean, I wonder. I mean, I was. I never understood how Benedict and John Paul II, for example, could have so much time to write so many encyclicals and books.
Right. Because of all the audiences and the traveling and the masses.
I mean, these guys are getting up at 5 or 6 o'clock in the morning every day, offering mass, and then going to meetings, holding audiences, having private audiences, going on trips, visiting places, kissing babies and blessing children and all the rest of it, and then somehow have the time to write encyclicals and books.
A lot of them are written, giving notes or whatever, or doing on planes and traveling, So I mean, and if you look at those encyclicals, which I'm sure all of us have, and many of our viewers, they're not anything profound. It's not like Leo the 13th encyclical, or a Pius V encyclical, or something
I wasn't talking about Bergoglio, but I don't think you could say the same.
Benedicts were well researched, and even JP2. I mean, Fides et Ratio is a wonderful one, and it's all researched and footnoted, and serious scholarship.
And if anything,
JP2 was a better philosopher than he was theologian.
But what gets me with both of those, for example, was and I know Bergoglio has really sort of pushed the boat out in terms of length of encyclical. But it always amazed me how they had the time to find all these references and sources and citations from the Second Vatican Council. They don't seem to consult anything else, so I suppose there's that. But but that's quite that's a lot for somebody to manage. And when you think how most of us, you know, have had sympathy for poor old Monsignor Watsit or Canon Watsit, who, you know, in his late 70s and early 80s is still saying 3 masses on a Sunday, and doing chaplaincy at the hospital, and has no curate and no parish sister to help him out. And you know, we worry about them. How can these people, you know, with the burden of high office, it does beg the question, I think, you know, is it reasonable actually to expect so much of them?
Yeah. I remember a priest telling me once that, you know, the past popes were all sort of, well, I mean, John the 23rd didn't make it through his own council, but they were all older and sort of slow and dottery and carried around in a chair. And then when John Paul II was first elected pope, he was striding across St. Peter's Square, you know, full of youth and vigor. One of the youngest elected popes in recent times. I mean, he didn't end that way, of course, as we all well know. But yeah, it does beg or believe that. I mean, it's an awful lot of strain, and I think people, even the Queen of England in her last days, you know, on her little shepherd's crook, and you know, days before she died, she you know, received Liz Truss.
Yeah, she said goodbye to Boris and received Lynn.
Yeah.
So, but then she wasn't producing big pastoral letters and theological tomes at the same time.
No, it was just a Christmas message here and there. But yeah, no, it's. I think there's a time where,
which actually said a great deal more than most of the others.
Yeah.
But when you mentioned,
and succinctly too.
Yes, yeah. You got to get back to Turkey.
When you mentioned about President Biden, before he was elected, most of the people in our country knew that his health was failing. He wasn't in the best of health, but yet the people voted for him. My question is, a lot of what we're dealing with is because of the ignorance of people who vote.
I'm going to just say really quick, I don't think a lot of people knew they voted for Biden, if you catch my drift.
Oh, dear. No, I think it was more an anti-Trump vote than a pro-Biden vote.
Well, well, that's true too. But look at what we ended up with because of it.
Yeah, no, it's, and you know, actually, you know, I mentioned Trump. If Trump runs again this coming presidential cycle, he'll be the same age as Biden.
I don't think he should, and I have a feeling he's not going to.
There's already been a lot of talk that that's going to split the red ticket, and then the blue's just going to take over more.
Well, it has to be it has to be a primary, so there's going to be one candidate. So I don't see if it can split a ticket, unless he runs as an independent, of course. But if he loses the primary, but
the mega party.
Okay, let's we're digressing slightly, so let's move on to the
this is not a political show.
Let's notice slightly. So this is the US bishops say religious freedom protections in the same-sex marriage bill are insufficient.
I'm actually shocked they came out with that statement.
Yeah, I was surprised.
And I was surprised that was Cardinal Dolan that said it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, I'm like, is this the same USCCB that we're like been commenting on for the past decades? Did they just like wake up and actually get some kind of reason?
Do you think it's got anything to do with the new USCCB president?
which is the other thing I'm really shocked about, because wasn't that supposed to go to Vigneron?
Yeah, I
He
think so.
got huge, like, overlooked on that. That was a huge insult to him, because he was supposed to be next in line for that, the way the succession goes. I mean, it's not written in stone, but it's, the pattern that's been shown for the past decades. And he just got a huge whomp on that. So there's something, and hopefully it's our prayers working, that are bringing more sensible people. Because I know the president, he's actually fairly conservative.
Yeah, Brolio is quite conservative, and
he's not traditional, but he's conservative.
Yeah, he's not a traditionalist, but he is conservative. And also, what's interesting is he's head of the armed forces, and that's very unusual for that sort of bishop to be appointed, because normally it would go generally to one of the archbishops, and invariably would go to somebody with a conventional diocese. But personally, I think the reason why they've gone for why they voted for Brolio is because when you think about the state of the diocese, the armed forces is much less scandal attached and involved there.
Have you met the military personnel in this country?
No, it's not.
But we're talking about the clergy. We're talking about the chaplains and clergy, and I actually know a couple of military chaplains from the diocese here in Marquette. They're sensible guys, and
isn't the diocese of the military an archdiocese?
It is.
Yes.
Yeah.
But it's not like a physical see, like Marquette or Chicago or Detroit.
Right. It's not territorial. In a sense it is. It covers military base. But as regards Dolan, and I'm going to have to go in a few minutes. I apologize, but Dolan has always shown, from when he was in Milwaukee to New York now, he blows hot and cold. When Ratzinger was the main driving guy, he was very conservative. When Bergoglio got in, not so much. And now he's, so it's typical him.
Oh yeah. He's a political player.
Absolutely, and he's as an Irishman, I think he's a bit of an embarrassment. He does all that jolly laughing, and have you seen him in a procession? He's shaking hands with people like a politician, and pointing at people like Hillary Clinton and all that sort of stuff, and waving, and you're in a procession, just get out. You can stand out in the steps and shake hands, but you look like an idiot.
Oh, he's huge on that.
He's huge in general.
Yeah, he's not a small man.
Yeah, he hasn't skipped a dinner in a while. I'm one to talk, but still.
You're the only one who can.
It's fat on fat crime.
Well, on that jolly note, we won't detain you further, Excellency. If you have to go.
Yeah, I need to get back. I need to get back to Chicago. Yes. Yeah. So I gotta close up here, and what's that?
Safe travels back to Chicago.
Thank you. Yeah,
and
it's pretty windy, snowy day here, but should be all right.
It's been same up here. And everything's should be set at the Friar for you tomorrow. If you have any questions, call me.
Very good. When are you back in time?
Tomorrow evening.
Okay. Well, safe travels to you, and goodbye, everyone. Thanks for tuning in.
And have a happy Thanksgiving.
Oh yes, happy Thanksgiving. Please God, we'll see you. We'll see you all next week. Yeah, enjoy your Thanksgiving.
You too.
Bye for now.
Bye.
Okay. Yes, our thanks to Bishop Kelly as always for finding the time to. It's some of course don't realise, but he is a full-time hospital chaplain himself, and Saturday is his day off. So he has to cram into one day everything that the rest of us can possibly spread over others. And we catch up on sleep, etc. So we're very grateful to Bishop Kelly for joining us as he does when he's able. So let's have just continue with that lighter theme for a second, and have a sort of break before we move on to the next topic.
A guardian angel was watching. That's what the priest who was behind the wheel of this white car is saying about the heart-stopping moment an SUV flew right over him. Les Trent has more on this leap of faith.
There's no other way to describe it. It truly is a miracle. A heart-stopping moment as an SUV goes airborne, flying over a car driven by, you won't believe it, a priest on his way to church.
I do believe it's a miracle, and that God's hand was in it some way.
87-year-old Father John Bach was in the white Hyundai on his way to 9 a.m. Sunday Mass. The driver of the SUV is said to have experienced a seizure and lost control.
All of a sudden, I sensed something go by me, but I didn't really see it.
He had no idea what had happened and went on to deliver Mass at St. Andrew's Catholic Church in Milford, Ohio.
Our Father, who art in heaven.
It wasn't until after church, when he joined some friends for breakfast, that a police officer who had responded to the scene showed him the surveillance video. What did he think?
Oh my God.
OMG is right. Father Bach is not only a priest. For 18 years, he taught high school physics. So when he analyzed the video, he noted the pole that the driver hit.
He hit it so perfectly that it sprung him up in the air like a pole vaulter.
One more touch of irony. On the day of the accident, Father Bach was celebrating the Feast of the Guardian Angels.
Perhaps the guardian angel has something to do with it.
Maybe so. Father John says the young man in the SUV was checked out at a hospital. He's going to be just fine.
Now, I wonder how many viewers noted the incongruity of that last comment by the male presenter when he said that the priest had been celebrating the Feast of Guardian Angels, and yet he was in green vestments.
Well, I mean, novice order, you can do what you want. So, I mean, the color of vestments really, I mean, but in all fairness, though, the color of vestments doesn't necessarily, it's not like a dogmatic rule when it comes to the liturgy. So what's the rule is your collect, your intention, and what's in the missal and what the priest is saying. That's what makes the mass the mass. So when it comes to the liturgical colors of vestments, obviously he may have been commemorating that because I think the Feast of the Guardian Angels was on a Sunday this year.
It did fall on a Sunday this year. That's true.
So it was commemorated. So that's the thing. I mean, you're celebrating Sunday, and like I think we commemorated it. So you would be wearing green vestments with a commemoration of it.
It trumps a Sunday.
Then we wore white. So whatever, I would have to go back and look at the book.
Don't rely on Father Thomas for any liturgical notes.
Once you feel more comfortable what's coming up in a few months now, back to Fortescue I go.
He's only been a traditional priest for 4 years. Never mind. Moving on.
Too quick to get that refund.
Mind you, he is a missionary Franciscan, so what can we expect?
Commenting on a Franciscan priest, so Franciscans don't make a Dominican.
But anyway, it was. I mean, he was lucky, wasn't he?
Very much so lucky, and his guardian angel probably was guiding him and guiding the person in that vehicle that had the medical emergency.
But it did concern me somewhat that he said he didn't really notice anything.
Well, I mean, when you look at it, so if he's focused on the road ahead and it looks like he was going on a ramp or something, it's like a merge ramp. So if you're looking at that, then most likely his focus would have been on merging traffic, not something coming directly to his. And if he was a good Franciscan priest on his way to offer mass, hopefully you would like to think he may have been praying a rosary, which is something that I like to do when I'm driving, is pray rosaries. So maybe he was doing that. So his attention was, not as
I'm not sure
wide angle.
So the other thing, folks, don't get in a car with Father Thomas because he won't be paying attention to the driving.
No, I always had a pretty good track record. I've had a very good track record so far.
But thank God for guardian angels.
And our Blessed Lady. And St. Christopher.
Now, so to introduce our next topic, we're going to hear from another commendable voice of tradition and reason on the whole, and that is one Mother Miriam, who some of you will know from Ave Maria Radio.
Well, yes, and actually a woman that I don't know, but she wrote because last Sunday, apparently she has 3 children grown at home, and her husband is a lax Catholic, not lapsed, but sometimes he goes to church. She has a 15-year-old son at home, and she was away on Sunday. And when she came home, she asked her 15-year-old if he went to church. And he said, well, no. She said, well, why didn't you ask Dad to drive you? He said, well, I forgot about it. And she wanted to know what she should do with her son, if she should discipline him, what should happen. And I said to her, I don't know about your son. If he forgets it's Sunday, the faith is probably not his personally. And I said, my bigger concern is why you are not home on a Sunday. And she wrote back and she said, well, one child was running a marathon and the other was at a sports game. So they had to split up to attend the children's games. I simply wrote her back and I said, that's not God's design for a Sunday or for the family. If you don't make Sunday the priority, your children should not even be playing sports games on Sunday. Again, that's being in the world and of it. And you want your husband and your 15-year-old to go to Mass. You need to be home with them. You need to be home as a family. She would never, I haven't heard back from her, she would never consider that that's not living as a Catholic. Yeah. Because she didn't kill anybody. She might have even gone to work where she traveled, to Mass, where she traveled. If we lived our faith, Joe, I believe we're not only no different than the world, we are worse than the world. We have more grace than anyone on the face of this earth, and we live like the world. If we lived our faith, if we lived as if it were true, the stores would be closed on Sunday because we wouldn't be in them. The restaurants would be closed because we wouldn't take our families to them after Mass and demand that others who should be keeping Sunday as a day of worship serve us. The world would be different if we were living our faith. We have a grace that no one has. We have an accountability that is greater than anyone else on earth, to whom much is given, much is required. And I believe, again, I don't discount the devil and his ways, but we are not living as Catholics in the world. I don't think you could spot a Catholic on the street. They dress the same in clothing that used to be my underwear, immodest, the speech. You can't tell Catholics apart, and it's utterly, utterly
That's
tragic,
so true, Mother
Joe.
Miriam.
We are responsible.
I was just at the University of Houston campus yesterday afternoon, and there was I was pamphleting against 10 reasons why transgender ideology is harmful to the family. And a lot of these people who were coming by were wearing rosaries, miraculous medals. They were dressed incredibly inappropriately. And when I'd hand them the flyer, they would just scoff at me in disgust. And they would say things like, "I'm not even going to waste my time with you," or "You're disgusting," or they would curse at me. Meanwhile, they're wearing rosaries, they're wearing miraculous medals, and claim to be Catholic, claim to be representatives of the church. And that just, when everything you're saying there just spoke very true to my experience as well. People,
yeah, no.
I only have one agreement with what she said. That when she said something about not killing somebody, how the mom thinks, she did. Well, everything's fine because I didn't kill somebody. I'm like, actually, theologically, you did. Your family missed mass, which is a moral obligation. Thus, now there could be, situation in that is beyond that 15-year-old's control, but at least for the father and for the mother not reminding the father to take the kid to mass, they could be culpable for a mortal sin for missing mass on Sunday. So that is death. Mortal sin means death to the soul.
Well, ultimately. So, but I don't think Miriam was trying to absolve her. I think she was just trying to explain that, from the mother's perspective, she's thinking that, that she hasn't actually killed someone. And that's the problem, isn't it? Because that's the way people think. And that's what needs to change. And, we forget. I mean, I was watching earlier today, Archbishop Broglio, so the new president of the USCCB, and he was saying, that the church's mission is to preach and to teach that this life is nothing compared to the afterlife, and everything in this life we should be focused on for the sake of the next. And as you say, you're quite right to say that that even though we may think, well, we haven't actually killed someone, so we haven't actually participated in an abortion, we haven't actually helped to procure an abortion, we haven't killed someone ourselves by not going to mass. Nonetheless, as the gospel says, beware of him who can kill not just the body but also the soul. And as you say, that's where our faith comes in, because even though we might not technically have assisted or anyone to physically die, nonetheless, if we refrain and restrain ourselves from preaching, from explaining the gospel and our moral duties and obligations as Christians about sin, then we're committing a worse crime by allowing those whom seemingly we love actually to have the possibility of an eternal death. And I think this is
I think it was spot on what she said about the 15-year-old. Well, if he forgot that it was Sunday and you need to go to the church, he doesn't even really have the faith. Like, where's the catechesis? And I applaud Sister Miriam. I've watched or listened to some of her stuff, not as religiously, but she's spot on most of the stuff she says. I mean, you would be hard pressed to find anything to disagree with her, and if you do, you're most likely not a Catholic. She's one of the few good nuns we got left, and God bless her, and Mary keep her steadfast in that conviction and fire and zeal, because we need it. We need nuns to be nuns, to hold that discipline. And honestly, and then it's the dad. The father is responsible. The father is the patriarch of the household. The father is the priest of the house. And it's his responsibility to make sure that his kids are catechized, that his kids are practicing the faith, that his wife is supporting, that the family goes to church and is Catholic. It's if the dad fails in that, then he has to answer. And if the mom's trying to pick up slack, then bless her for doing that. And hopefully she can persevere and get the dad back on to where he needs to be. But ultimately, it does fall on the dad. The father is in control of the house, and we need to get back to that masculinity. We need to get back to that virtuousness of living, because it's so much in this culture. The man is just, it has become no longer virtuous. It's just effeminate. There we go. And it's effeminacy that demasculated, and we're just, and that's what we're battling. Yeah.
I know.
And so there's just so much at stake here with this. But I think as Catholics and those faithful viewers we have, we need to really take a good examination. Is this where we want to be? Do we want to be in eternity with God or not?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And, you know, and you see, part of the problem, the wider context of what Mother Miriam was talking about was, as I mentioned, I think last week or the week before, the increased secularization of Catholics. You know, Mother was quite right when she said, you know, we shouldn't be working on Sundays, and we shouldn't be allowing others to work on Sundays, really. You know, that really it's not right, as so many do, to, and this is true of traditional Catholics, who, you know, will go to Mass, and then will go to a public restaurant, and have a meal, expecting others to work and to serve them. Whereas we should be proclaiming the gospel, and actually there shouldn't be anyone to open a restaurant and serve anyone, because we should have done our job, and they, like us, will have gone A, to Mass, and B, to their homes and to their families. And you know, it's interesting that Americans, of course, and here in the UK, people still make so much of being home for Thanksgiving and for Christmas, and yet really that should be true of every Sunday. Every Sunday should be the Lord's Day. It should be the Sabbath day. It should be a day of rest, and it should be a day when families come together, and of course, by extension, those who family in our congregation should be invited to come to family homes, and expect hospitality and inclusion. And if you think, and I've said this many times before, but if you could imagine a congregation that lived that way, just imagine for a minute that every congregation of every parish, of every church, of every chapel had committed Catholics who all attended the liturgy on Sunday mornings, and then went home and spent the day with their families, had a celebratory meal, as Sunday lunch should be, and invited those who had, you know, who were without friends or without family from church to come with them. Imagine the kind of fellowship. Imagine how, you know, there would be no loneliness, there would be no isolationism. People would be less likely to fall away and drop into sin, because we know that loneliness and isolation is generally what draws people to sin. You know, it's much more difficult to sin when you're in company than when you're without, and you're much less inclined to sin if you think that others actually care and give a damn about what you do. And you know, just imagine how different our society would be if just the Christians, you know, and if all those who were nominal Catholics. So, and I think, you know, as we were always saying on this program, it's that difference between calling yourself a Catholic or being a Catholic culturally and actually being a committed Christian Catholic.
You know, living the faith, or just, you know, having it as a title on your name. Now, the one thing I do want to make, and I'm pretty sure, you know, this is goes without saying, but just in case anybody is paranoid or freaking out or worried about it, for those who work in healthcare, emergency services, those type of professions, they are dispensed on Sundays, because we do need those people to work. We do know so
law enforcement.
Yeah, emergency services, medical field. So if you work in hospitals, stuff like that, you know, obviously that's a 24/7 operation. So you do make the sacrifice. Now, I'm privileged enough, obviously being a priest, I just get up and I say my mass before I go to work, so I don't miss mass on Sundays, but I do have to work on Sundays. Every other Sunday, I do have to go to my secular job.
I mean, we all know there are valid exceptions. That's not
But
the point.
I just want to make, because some people viewing this could get scruples and be freaking out. So to answer that question,
just in the same way that if you're ill on a Sunday and you can't physically attend mass, you are dispensed. I mean, the church has ever been pragmatic, and pastoral and considerate in that respect, with regard to the application of a discipline. There are always exceptions to the rule.
And I will say this, just because I have done it a couple times. For those who are like working as a police officer, firefighter, or EMT paramedic, if you're in a quieter town, your call volume's not as crazy, and you're working on a Sunday, stop by a church. Turn your radio down, enough where you can hear it, but try to attend the mass. At least you're giving an effort to attend. And if you get called out, if you have to go on an emergency call you made the effort. At least you've done something. And, even though you could be dispensed, but
remember that the discipline, the obligation is to hear mass.
Right.
Of course, in the when the law was set, it was normal and common for everyone to actually attend mass, and you couldn't really hear mass any other way until radio, and now, of course, though, with TV, with the internet, etc. Most people these days have Android or iPhones with access to the internet. You can hear a live mass. You're using your phone. Mm-hmm. So if if you are in that sort of situation, there are ways in which you can hear mass. You don't technically fulfill the obligation,
but you're making the effort, and you're trying to sanctify the day. So, and it goes a long way, because the more we make the effort to be Catholic and to live our Catholic life and stop making excuses, the more grace and virtue that we are going to be tapping into to the treasure bank of heaven, which will help get a lot of these problems that we're facing rectified. And that's what we need to understand, is that we're cooperating with the eternal bank of grace that is God in heaven. And when we go the extra mile and keep on going the extra mile, we are going to be helping countless souls. And hopefully, we may not see the outcome in our lifetime. We may not know all the good that we were able to do. But if we just keep persevering and going, pushing ourselves, now not to the point of like extreme exhaustion and stuff, but stop making excuses and start living virtuously. And I'm looking at myself in the mirror right now, or a computer screen, when I'm saying that, because we always got to try the extra more. Can I get an extra rosary in a day? Can I visit a cemetery? Can I visit our Lord in the Blessed Sacrament for a little bit? Just whatever it may be. Stop making excuses.
Yes. I don't.
Sorry.
That sound was then.
It was my end. There's a notification on my mom's laptop. Sorry. And it threw me off too.
And now a key thing, you see, now what to sort of summarize what Mother Miriam was getting at as well is and what we all need to remember is that all of this, as the phrase goes, charity begins at home. Now, by charity here, of course, I'm referring to the divine charity and to that sacrificial love that should be the lifeblood of our existence as children of God. As Father, you were saying earlier, we do need to get our domestic oratories, which is the home. We need to get our homes and our families back in order. Now, so often people say, to us, oh, those days are gone, and this is the 21st century, not the blah 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 and all the rest of it. And yet, one of the things I always notice, and as you know, I do a lot of work with people of other faiths and things. One of the things I always notice is people love the fact that Orthodox Jews and Hasidic Jews and all the rest of it do things in a certain way, and that they have a certain way of being, they have a certain way of not just religious worship, but religious observance, which affects the whole way they dress, the whole way they speak, the whole way they act, the whole way they behave. Likewise, devout Muslims also give a very powerful witness in the West to their familial traditions and to their religious observance and customs. The women who wear the hijab or the burqa, and so on and so forth. And people are always fascinated, by the Amish and the Mennonites and all the rest of it. And I just wish that, again, to refer to what Mother Miriam said, when you go into a street, you can't tell a Catholic from anybody else. So
we can reclaim that. It's within our grasp. It's in our power to reclaim it. We're the only reason why that's not happening. Sorry again for that. And that's the thing that Mother Mary, bravo again for her, because it's like, we need to, if we're stop complaining first and foremost and start doing. Don't be a complainer, but be a doer. Get results. And so many young men online that I've been chatting with, traditional Catholic groups and stuff like that. There is that sense of troubleness there, and it's just trying to remind them that we need to just stop worrying about what everybody else is doing and focus on what you're doing. And if you want to wear a nice suit and you want to go out and dress properly as a man, do it. If you can afford it, do it. And if you can't afford it, dress appropriately with what attire you can afford. There's nothing wrong if you can only afford a polo. Well, get a nice polo shirt. And if that's what you can afford right now, okay. And don't be afraid to go to thrift stores and stuff like that. You can find a lot of great deals and a lot of good clothing. That all it needs is just good, quick wash, and you could be, you could wear a $500 suit for $50 if you find the right thrift store. So seriously, you can.
Oh no, you can. No, you can. I found a Pierre Cardin suit for a tenner in a charity shop here. No, absolutely. So the reason why actually I played that clip from Mother Miriam and introduced this topic is because something we've been working on as Old Romans and that we want to develop. And I know that many of you who are watching, you often say either in the comments or by email, what can I do or what should I do? And something we've been piloting in a few places. I want to. We're still soft launching, but it's going to get bigger, I think, as we go along. And I'm going to put some links up now. What I should have done is I've got to remember to. That's it. Do that. And then do that. And then I'm going to post in the comments now the same information. There we go. So yes, many people ask, how does the Old Roman apostolate work? And the whole purpose, our whole purpose as Old Romans is to perpetuate, preserve, and continue the perennial Catholic doctrine, tradition, faith, praxis, and try, as it were, to offer assistance, support in a kind of auxiliary way to Catholics who want to live a more traditional and orthodox Catholic way of life. So, bearing in mind that, you know, many of us are all around the world, we're dispersed. One of the, you know, initial problems is coming together. I mean, actually, one of the reasons why this channel was created, one of the reasons why I began broadcasting the daily mass 10 years, over 10 years, I might add, before COVID, was to enable traditional Catholics anywhere in the world to see and view and hear mass, who otherwise wouldn't be able to attend mass, because there's only a dreadful NO being offered near them, or it was too far for them to travel to a traditional Latin mass. Well, now, by extension, what we want to do with the oldroman.com is we've created a forum, and we want to encourage as many of you as possible to join the forum and interact with each other there, just as you do every week here in the chat on YouTube. But we've created a place there at the oldroman.com where you can introduce yourselves to each other, get to know each other, and hopefully we may discover that there are, you know, 2 or 3 people who are living relatively near to each other. There might even be 2 or 3 people within the same town or the same village. And if there are, then they could form what we call a cell. Now, remember the scripture, where 2 or 3 are gathered together in my name. So they could create a cell, which would be very informal, of course. But the idea is that like-minded Orthodox Catholics in a locale would meet together regularly to pray and to experience fellowship and to have the kind of conversations and discussions that we have here on Unscripted. And the hope would be, and as we've seen elsewhere, develop from that a mission, because the idea is that, and this is the real crux of the matter. You see, where 2 or 3 people are gathered together, praying in Jesus's name with true faith in the fulfillment of that promise that Christ gave, that he would be with them, necessarily it should be expected that that nucleus, that cell, will grow, because as the 3 persons, reflecting, of course, by nature the Trinity in charity, grow in love for God and for each other, they will naturally, by extension, want to manifest and share that love with others. And so they will begin to bring other people to the cell. And the cell will grow from 2 to 3 to 5 to more. And then hopefully eventually achieve the next stage, which would be the beginning of a mission, the formation of a mission. And this might be where you have a dozen people who will commit themselves to some form of lay ministry in outreach. So whether that's feeding the homeless, whether it's visiting the elderly, whatever it is. But from that, they will witness to the community around them the love of Christ that is in them and that motivates them to do this work. And that in itself will draw more people. And then the idea is that at a certain point, more people will, such a number of people will come together that they will desire and want more than just the prayerful fellowship that began everything, but that they will want the sacraments. And they might be in a situation then when there's, you know, say 50 or more of them, they might be in a position then to support the expenses for a traditional priest to visit regularly and say mass and bless objects, sacramentals, hear confession, etc. And then hopefully, again, from that, eventually grow into something of an oratory where a regular public place could be utilized for a regular offering and a more solemn offering of the liturgy, like a missa cantata or whatever. So this strategy I've now made available on the oldroman.com, so that you can read it and you can see how we as Old Romans work, and hopefully you can see the sense of it. And then, as I say, on the website now is this forum, and forums have been created for cells, missions, and oratories. But you can flip between, you can flip between them all and join in the discussions. But the idea is that you will sign up to the forum via the website and then interact with each other, and hopefully yourselves invite others to interact there as well. And as I say, by God's grace, and manifest faith on our part, hopefully we can begin to create cells and missions and oratories where you are. And we will do our level best to try and support your efforts. So as you know, and as you will have seen, I hope, in the last couple of weeks, there have been little changes to the website, portending greater things. For example, resources for the faithful, resources for clergy as well. As you know, every day, matters of interest, news items, academic articles, spiritual conferences in videos and printed form are put up on the website every day. There's already a mine of information and knowledge and resource for anyone who would like to commit themselves to living an orthodox, traditional, Catholic way of life and of being. So please do visit theoldroman.com and subscribe, join the forum, and let's start the conversations and see where the Spirit leads us. Because I am more and more convinced that as things become more and more difficult within the context of our contemporary culture and society, and sadly the church itself, that there are an increasing number of souls who just want that old-time religion, who just want the faith and want to find a way to learn that faith, to know that faith, experience that faith, and themselves become that faith. And that's our whole raison d'etre as Old Romans. And as I've said, and I hope, as you know, we've been around for a long time. We were around long before the SSPX. We were around long before the other traditional Catholic societies. And we do
as they say in the jail, we're the OG.
Yeah,
we're the original.
The originals. But we do have a lot of lived experience and knowledge that we can bring to bear and to share this living and authentic Catholic life in the contemporary context. Now, Father Thomas, I think, so often traditional Catholics even forget the very promises of Christ, like where 2 or 3 are gathered together in my name, I will be there in the midst of them. Yeah. And I think, because so often we tend to think of, oh no, we need the real presence, and we need the sacrament, and we need, whereas
we need to have the archbasilicas and the grand cathedrals, and we need to have 500 families in the pews, and what our Lord is asking for, and even today, a prime example, Saint Elizabeth, widow, Third Order Franciscan, the saint we celebrate today, and just celebrating her, remembering that God calls us to love. And that's it. He's about quality, not quantity. If he gets 100% of your heart, your mind, you win. But you have to give him 100%. You can't go, any less than that. Now he's going to get you to 100% in the end. If you're striving for 100%, if your intention and your amendment of life and the way you're striving and struggling to live is to get to that 100%, God's grace will get you there. Don't worry about that, because we need to cooperate with God's grace. That's the only way we're going to get to 100 is with God's grace. It's not by our own action. It's not by our own self. So remember that. But it's even like just here, offering the holy sacrifice of Mass in the living room here with my mom and myself and maybe a couple other family members if they're able to come by, starting out and just remembering that no matter where I'm offering the Mass, I'm offering the Mass. No matter where you're praying, no matter what attention you're giving to God, you're giving it to God. And the mustard seed, right? We start out small, and then you grow into this beautiful tree that produces mustard, so you can put it on your hot dogs and whatnots. But that's how we have to have it. That's the way the apostles were. That's the way the early church was. It's no different for us 2,000 years later.
Exactly.
So
I mean, this is the great shame, of course, is the fact that the crisis, things have reached such a state in the church that we have to begin again. But that is what we have to do. I mean, and that is the answer. The great institution and edifice that is the awe of contemporary people today. That is the Catholic Church International. That began with 12 people in Jerusalem in one room,
and then it went down to 11, and then it went back up to 12, and then the whole thing.
No, I was beginning from Pentecost.
Okay, fair enough. Sorry. I was just going to show, like, even with 12, then it went down one, then it goes back up. And the beauty of it is that we just have to maintain and persevere through. It's difficult living a life, living a Catholic life. It's not easy.
Is that we don't have to do it alone. We don't have to do it alone.
And that's what I was getting at. We don't.
One of the wonders of modern technology is the fact that we really don't have to do it alone. When you go back to the 70s and to the 80s and the early days of the traditional Catholic movement, it was much more difficult. We had snail mail, we had landlines, and that was it. Then eventually we had radio. Then eventually we had a bit of TV. But it was, it was difficult. Since 2000, since the millennium, the resources that are available to us and cheaply to spread messages and share messages and actually interact in real time. I mean, this show alone. This show alone. Imagine if in 1976, Archbishop Lefebvre could have addressed Catholics internationally through the internet, but of course it didn't exist then.
Right.
But it exists now, and as I'm always saying to people, we are where we are because God has purposed us to be in this moment, in this place, in this time, and so we should, utilize what's available to us now to effect His mission. So there's no reason anymore for traditional Catholics who may well live miles and hundreds of miles from another traditional Catholic not to know each other, because we have this medium now.
And the other thing is, we need to remember, we have become comfortable. We have become maybe a little bit entitled. And there are certain traditional groups that maybe have let their guard down a little bit because, they fought an early fight with the Vatican II Council. And now they're, a little bit more structured and stable, and you see they're maybe letting their guard down, and now, but no, you never let your guard down. You can't, and because then that's when bad things start happening, and you see what's happening within the traditional sects, right? You know, all these splinter groups within traditionalism. It's like, come on, guys, if we're like what, maybe all traditional Catholics worldwide, we're maybe 5%, maybe 10 of the Catholic population worldwide. I mean, and that's being generous.
Yeah, I think 5 would be generous.
Right, I was going a little bit more generous. Just
no. I think 5 would be really generous.
5 is really generous. So we're 5% of the population already, but we're already splintered within ourselves. If that 5% could become a strong nucleus of tradition, oh man, the miracles, the good that would happen with that. Because then if clergy could get together and we could resource each other and be available for each other, instead of having these stupid political and ideally just prideful arguments with each other all day long. And I mean, yourself and we know, we've been in those arguments. We know what it's like, and but even the faithful, just lay people.
One of the things with the Old Roman, with the oldroman.com, which I'm sure some of you have noticed, is the fact that shared on there are resources, articles, and videos from the whole spectrum of traditional Catholicism, from Recognize and Resist through to Sedevacantist, everything else. I obviously I'm the editor, but my concern is, well, actually, this is
it Catholic?
Is it Catholic? This is good information. This is sound.
That's the only thing the Old Romans. That's the only thing we've ever preached on. Is it Catholic? If it's Catholic, we're going to share it. We're going to preach it. We're going to teach it. We don't care who came up with it. We don't necessarily, if there's valid Catholicism, if it's dogmatically sound, we're going to share it, and and what people can't understand is that, I'll use a buzzword here. We're the true inclusives of traditionalism. We are the melting pot of traditional Catholicism, in the sense that we don't ask you where you go to Mass and judge you on that. We ask you, are you able to attend Mass? I don't care wherever chapel you go to. Can you get to the liturgy? Can you get to a valid sacrament? Okay, then we go from there. You don't judge people, and you don't, people get so caught up with that. Oh, you're Old Roman, you're SSPX, you're Institute Christ the King, you're Sedevacantist. We need to get over that. And the Archbishop, you've preached it the best out of anybody that I've ever known. You got to get over yourself. And that's how we need to do it. And if that 5% nucleus of traditional Catholicism comes together and unites in bond and love and charity, like that true charity, that bond and unity that St. John of the Cross talks about and describing the Holy Trinity, that's what we need to go. That's our goal. Let's shoot for that. And then the miracles and the wonders and the awe that will happen. And I think I said it a couple weeks ago, and I'll end with this. The saints that will come from this time are going to be some of the greatest saints to ever grace the heavenly kingdom, if we cooperate and we allow it to happen. But we got to be willing to put the work into that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, folks, click on the links, join up. Let's get some discussions going. Encourage others too that you come across, because we all visit different websites and social media platforms and all the rest of it. We all have our favorites that we regularly go to. Some may be Sedi, some may be Resist, some may be whatever. It doesn't matter. But spread the word. But what we're looking for is traditional Catholics who need support, encouragement, and fellowship, and where it's necessary and where we can, we will supply the sacraments too.
And I'm sorry, I knew I was going to end that, but I have one more thing to share. I know if anybody watches Return to Tradition, I know Anthony Stein was doing a Q&A about a traditional Advent and how to make a traditional Advent. It was live streaming at the same time that we're doing this.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's still going, but that he's normally fairly good on that and finding those forgotten traditions of a good Advent. So if you want some advice, because Advent's next week, next Sunday, so this week ahead we should be preparing for a good Advent. Remember, penitential season, so that you should be fasting, you should be abstaining, you should be making it a mini Lent. It doesn't need to be as full on, but it should be noticeably different than.
But more of that in next week's show.
I won't be here. So I had to get that little plug in now.
And I won't be here either.
Grace, pray a blessing, please.
Sure. In nomine Patris et Filii et Spiritus Sancti. Amen. Sit nomen Domini benedictum, ex hoc nunc et usque in saecula. Adjutorium nostrum in nomine Domini, qui feci caelum et terram. Benedictio Dei omnipotentis, Patri et Filii et Spiritus Sancti, descendat super vos et manet semper. Amen.
Amen.
And let's offer an Ave for Cardinal Zen and for all those Christians around the world enduring persecution for the sake of our Saviour. Ave Maria, gratia plena Dominus tecum, benedicta tu mulieribus, et benedictus fructus ventris tui, Iesus. Santa Maria, Mater Dei, ora pro nobis peccatoribus, nunc et in horror mortis nostrae. Amen.
Amen.
In nomine Patris et Filii et Spiritus Sancti. Amen.
Amen.
Yes, God bless you all.
God bless you and happy Thanksgiving.
Boy,
Thank you, Mary, for joining us. It was great and a pleasure to have you on the show. Do come again. And God bless you all. Thank you all for your fidelity. We will, of course, be here next week. As always, where am I? Let's put the plug in. There we go. If you liked and appreciated this broadcast, please do like it. Literally press the like button and share it with friends, family, and anybody else you can pester with it, and encourage them to visit theoldroman.com and subscribe to the forum, and let's all get to know each other better. Lots of lovely wishes for Thanksgiving. So to all of you in the States, God bless you. And yes, we hope and pray that you will have blessed Thanksgiving. And we will see you all next week for the Advent edition of Unscripted. So until then, take care of yourselves. Stay salty.
Goodbye.
And remember, God loves you.